online security starts with a click. NordVPN encrypts your internet traffic and hides your IP and virtual location. NordVPN helps protect you against bandwidth throttling from internet providers, where ISPs slow down your internet to get you to upgrade. NordVPN allows you to switch your country's IP address to access Netflix, Disney+, YouTube Premium, etc. in other countries for cheaper prices. NordVPN offers unparalleled browsing security and protection from hacking of personal data. Get your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/5RSN or use the promo code 5RSN to get a discount on your NordVPN plan plus one additional month for free and a bonus gift at checkout. All of this is completely risk-free with NordVPN's 30-day money-back guarantee. NordVPN.com/5RSN or use the promo code 5RSN and start saving with the world's leading VPN provider, NordVPN. Are you a South Florida property owner with an insurance claim? Are you dealing with water, mold, or fire damage? Looking for a reputable, fully licensed, insured, and certified contractor? Water Cleanup of Florida is here for you 24 hours a day. When a disaster strikes in your home or business, you need specialized, fast, and reliable services. Water Cleanup of Florida understands the impact and stress an unexpected disaster may cause. With over 62 years of combined experience, Michael, Robert, and Eric and their team is prepared to handle any size disaster. The guys are born and raised in South Florida, so changing the narrative on the way contractors conduct business in South Florida is extremely important to them. Their objective is to make cleanup and insurance claim process painless and hassle-free. Water Cleanup of Florida is also a licensed building contractor, so they provide the A to Z service, one-stop shopping that busy homeowners and business owners require. There's no need to bring in other contractors. They will handle it all for you. Call or text them anytime at 561-408-7835 for immediate assistance. The number again, 561-408-7835. Water Cleanup of Florida. This show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is a revolutionary new daily fantasy game whereby you pick 2, 3, or 4 players to go over or under their fantasy point projections, and if you're correct, you win. Pick 2 or more players from the same sport or league, or go cross leagues for your parlay. Use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, 5, and receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. But first, sign up at prizepicks.com to start winning today.
Welcome to 3 Yards Per Carry, a podcast covering the Miami Dolphins and the NFL. Now, here's your hosts, Chris, Alf, and Simon.
And we're on. And welcome to the 5th season of 3 Yards Per Carry. I'm Alfredo Arteaga. Simon Clancy is here. And yes, Chris Kaufman is here. And he's not the same, he's not doing voices today. Like, I promise you, these are 2 different people.
Well, what we've done is we've recast the role of Simon Clancy. Okay. And so we have a new Simon Clancy. Would like you to welcome him to the show. He hasn't been here before, and he might be a little bit new, but that's okay.
Hello, Simon.
What's up, fatwits?
Yeah, there you are.
There it is. That's so Simon.
Back on 1 week off. 1 week off, and back on the fucking gravy train.
Yes, absolutely. By the way, are either of you surprised 5 years of this already?
I mean, the fact that people listen every week astounds me. Quite
as a minor miracle in itself.
Like, what are you doing with your free time?
Seriously, I don't listen to us.
I'd rather pour acid into my eyes than listen to this shit, but people do it.
Yeah, a lot of people do it. Like, we get numbers, like, we're kind of a big deal, as they say.
There's like 10,000 people tuning in to each episode, which kind of blows my mind a little bit, because essentially it's 3 old morons talking shit for 45 minutes a week.
Or more. We do like seriously way over long podcasts, like ridiculously too long.
We do. So that's the end of this week's show. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, I think that clears the what we have to do to get our check from Manscaped. Mentioning Manscaped, use the promo code 5RSN. We are, as always, brought to you by Manscaped. 5RSN, 20% off your entire order. We bought the Lawnmower 4.0, by the way.
Can I just say two things, actually, before we go any further? One, I'm not lying when I say that we have 10,000 listeners, which is pretty amazing. Therefore, if you'd like to sponsor this show, get in touch with one of us, because you're literally reaching 10,000 people, and that's a pretty big deal. And the second thing is, have you heard of OnlyFins?
Do
you know what
I've not heard of it. Simon, can you tell us what you're talking about?
Well, essentially, it's like this really cool place for people to hang out and kind of chat amongst like-minded Dolphins fans, but also like talk about draft prospects, but also get into a conversation with us, which, I mean, you'd think was absolute no, but 10,000 people listen to a podcast, so why wouldn't they want to get into conversation with us? But also, we just chat amongst ourselves, like we're in a little WhatsApp group chatting shit about the Dolphins and the draft and players and videos and all that sort of stuff. And people like join in, and it's a whole big community of fun-loving Dolphins fans. And it's really good. And apparently, I don't know, I mean, I've heard it's an actual thing. I don't know. It sounds like bullshit, to be honest, because there can't be this kind of Dolphins utopia where nice people chat about the Dolphins and drop like information about players and free agency and the draft and all that stuff. To me, it doesn't exist. But if it did, you might find it on our Twitter account or on the hashtag OnlyFins. But I mean, I don't know. Smells like bullshit to me.
Alf, yeah. I think I like this new guy that we cast as Simon.
He's a dude, and he's fucking handsome.
He's a dude. You know what's the most impressive thing about OnlyFins, Simon Alf?
Yeah.
Okay, think of how many people are in there. Like over 800 people. So that's active discussion, right? That's, you know, there's on there. Over 800 people. How many people have we had to kick for being unruly? Like, I think 2? 3?
Yeah, I think it's 3. Although mine was the most unique one because mine thought that it was a good idea to call me an asshole for 24 hours straight, and he wouldn't get kicked. And
yeah, but that's not why that one. That's not why we kicked him. I mean, that was a perk for me. Like,
yeah, I love that dude. I
love that guy.
But we've literally, and this is not bullshit. We've been doing this 5-6 months, this OnlyFins, and we've literally booted out 3 people. And there's now like, I mean, let me have a look right now, and I'll tell you exactly how many people there are in OnlyFins. Can you do that? I don't know. Does it tell you how many people are in it?
It's like it was before the end of the month. Well, the first of the month is when Patreon, like, you know, they kind of start charging everybody all again, and sometimes there's rejections, or it takes some while for payments to clear, and so the number always goes down. But it was over 800 people. It was over
852 members. 852. Mad.
And we've only had to kick 2 people. That's pretty crazy, because, like, I mean, how often have you been to like one of those message boards, or I don't know, Reddit or whatever, and you're just like, there's douchebags all around, and people find it hard to discuss there, and then it's just like, wow, that's not really here. And I think it's because douchebags don't tend to like us, and they definitely don't want to pay us money. They don't want to give us that satisfaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the 3 biggest douchebags in there are probably us 3.
Well, right. I mean, but we're not paying anybody. We're on the collecting end, so we get to be douchebags.
Well,
by the way, since we're patting ourselves on the back, can you guess how many downloads we've had in the last 4 years of this podcast? Because this is now our 270th episode, if I'm right. Yes.
I don't know.
Can you guess? And the number on Podbean is not correct, by the way. You have to dig a little deeper,
because there's a lot more. I mean, it's well over 1 million. I know that.
Yes. Well over 1 million.
Yeah.
Well, let's just say this.
I have no guess.
Well, let's just say this: we're 4 months away from reaching 2 million listeners and
Wow.
downloads.
Oh,
I mean, that's mental, isn't it?
that is incredible.
Yes, it is.
That's
boy.
Considering we just like did this kind of on the fly, because like one day, as I recall, it's like one day Ethan, Ethan Skolnick, who was head of the 5 Reasons, like he's like, hey, CK, I'm thinking about doing a website where we like write articles for basically like another, like think of one of the outfits out there like PFN or something like, where we charge people and then we write articles and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't really want to do that, but don't you guys have a podcast? And like, he's like, yeah, we do the basketball podcast. And I was like, well, maybe we'll do our football podcast and we'll just be under, all under the same banner, under the 5 Reasons banner. And the 3 of us have been talking about doing a podcast already forever. And so we're like, yeah, all right, we'll get it off the ground. We'll do it.
Yeah, and, I always get a kick out of us having fans. I go to one of these watch parties, and there's always somebody that comes up to me and walks up to me, and I'm always nervous that they're going to stab me or something. You know what I mean? But they always come up to me.
That's a fair concern, though.
Yeah, it is. But they always come up to me and they go, "You're Alf, right?"
In the street.
And they always come up to me and say, "You're Alf, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I always pause for a second. I'm like, "Should I say that I'm somebody else?" Like, And I'm like, "Yeah." Like, "Oh, I love your podcast. Love Simon. Love Chris." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Thank God."
As a rule,
another day I didn't get stabbed.
As a rule, if somebody comes up to me and says, "You're Chris, right?" or "You're CK, right?" or "You're, whatever," like I will deny it. I will deny nothing. Almost nothing good comes of it. Whether it's being served papers or what.
Yes, I once got served papers and I just walked away.
Got the wrong guy, buddy.
Yeah, I'm like, I ain't touching that.
That's when you say that you don't speak English.
All right, so where do we start? We got a lot to talk about. Our head coach is a hit over in Indianapolis right now. Kind of chatty, right? Like this is kind of different. I guess I'll start with you, Simon. Like this franchise has gotten a little bit chatty. I don't remember this much information this early on in the process. Like we know, and I guess we could take them all one by one. But we know so far they're close on Emmanuel Ogbah. They're talking contract with Xavier Howard. They're completely out on Deshaun Watson. Like a lot of information is coming about in these what has been 2 days in Indianapolis. Is this a change, or is it for the better? Is it for the worse? Simon, what do you think of this new disposition that this franchise has?
I mean, this Mike McDaniel dude should have a podcast, right? I mean, he talks so much.
No. He gets a podcast that might hurt our listenership.
He never shuts the fuck up, dude. He's always talking. He's like, one day he's at the cycling with Javon Holland and Christian Wilkins and Mac Hollins and hugging Wilkins and jumping all over him like a child. Next minute, he's at some kind of business combine for half the players in the team, dropping the mic on them and telling them what an opportunity it is to be great and prepare for their life after football. Then he's high-fiving Rich Eisen. Then he's jumping into John Lynch's press conference, telling John what a great motherfucker he is and all this sort of stuff. And you're like, who is this guy? He's like fucking Napoleon Dynamite on acid. It's like, dude, calm down. But
I'm enjoying it though. It's fun.
He also gets to work at 3 a.m. What sort of psycho is that? What time does he go to bed?
That is insane.
That is insane.
He gets to work at 3 a.m.
Oh, and he revealed that he drinks Red Bulls and cherry Pepsis all day.
That is so perfect. Like that is on brand, incredibly on brand.
The only way it could be more on brand is if it was Diet Mountain Dew.
Yeah, I don't know about the diet, like, because I see him as almost being like a coder, like he's like he coaches like he's on a code sprint, like basically.
He also said that the team is trying to figure out which snacks to stock up his office with, and I don't know. Do you have a guess what his snack would be?
Well, it's not going to be vegetables.
No.
Snow
caps, like. something really obscure.
Twizzlers, maybe.
Peanut M&Ms, if he's got any brains.
There you go. That's not bad. So Chris, same question. Like, this is different, right? Like, we're not used to this. You know, we our guy's popular.
Yeah, it's not only that he's popular; it's that it is such a dramatic turnabout from what we are used to, what we have been used to. I'm trying to think. Every single coach that I can think of in Miami has had some sort of either been outwardly, overtly anti-press, anti-media, or they, in the background, all their policies were that way. And so, it's this big, we're not going to tell you anything. We're not going to let on anything. We're not going to, and this is the first time I can remember a Miami Dolphins guy just being like, media, like he'll glow in front of the camera and just, he might even say too much, and just be like, yeah, I'm gonna talk to you guys all the time, and I'm gonna joke around, and we're gonna, and I'll tell you, I might actually answer your question. Like, can you imagine that?
Yeah.
It is very unusual. Like, it's not unusual for us to, I mean, people thought really well of Nick Saban when he was here. It's not unusual for us to have a well thought of coach. But a guy that's actually very friendly with the media, I'm not sure that that's happened.
Yeah, Jimmy had a lot of friends here. Jimmy Johnson, and of course Shula, of course. But Nick Saban hated all of the local media, but he was a national media darling. Ken Cameron was an idiot. Joe Philbin, I don't even remember a word he ever said. Okay, that was a weird.
Queasy's the only word. Queasy,
yeah, Joe Philbin was a weird. That was a weird era because I don't remember none of it. I really don't. And then, of course, Adam Gase was here, and then he changed. Like, something happened to him, right? And then Brian Flores was, all Patriot way, and now we have this guy, and it's kind of refreshing. But somebody on OnlyFans said earlier, he's gonna have to do some winning, okay? Because that does wear thin after a while, So, but so far so good. He's a hit in Indianapolis. He's doing like an interview a second, and I guess we could start right here. Where are the weaknesses? Because free agency is coming pretty soon. Okay, it's March 16th is when the legal tampering period kicks off. Simon, where do you perceive the weaknesses that are going to be filled with free agency? What are they right now on this team?
Well, it's pretty obvious running back and offensive line. So I think if it was me, I would fill the offensive line up in free agency, and I would draft running backs. But that's just me. You two might think differently. I think there's an opportunity to fill the offensive line and fix that pretty much. And I would go balls out to do so. I think I would we've pissed around with the offensive line for so long, for so many years, and if you want this kid at quarterback to work, if you want the running game to work, you're going to have to fix it. So, that's a Teron Armstead, that's a Laken Tomlinson, that's a James Daniels. That's whoever you feel at center, whether that's a Ryan Jensen or a Ben Jones or a Tyler Linderbaum in the draft, but let's get it fixed. I'm tired. I'm so tired of not being able to protect, not being able to run block. So for me, those are the two critical areas. And I think, once you do that, once you take a unit and fix it, I think then that opens up the opportunities for you to do what you want in the draft, whether that's a wide receiver. And we've seen today, all the big receivers have had formal interviews, whether that's Jameson Williams, Treylon Burks, Drake London, David Bell, Jahan Dotson, John Mechie. They've all had meetings with the Dolphins today or yesterday, last night. Whether that's a Trey McBride at tight end who McDaniel said reminded him of George Kittle, whether that's a linebacker like a Nakobe Dean or a Devin Lloyd if they happen to fall that far. But just fix the offensive line, because there are guys that we like, whether that's I don't think we're going to get to the top. We are picking at 29. We're certainly not going to get Evan Neal. We're not going to get Charles Cross. We're not going to get Ike Ekwonu. Linderbaum might fall because if, as we discussed in OnlyFins today, he says he's maxed out at 289 and probably played in the low 280s, and that will turn some teams off.
You have any information on how he'll lift at the combine? Is he one of those workout warriors?
So he's a country strength wrestler. Yeah, I think he was state champion as a wrestler. And there's those famous videos that you've probably seen them on social media of him fighting Tristan Wirfs. So he and Wirfs had quite a lot of battles when they were in high school together. But he's had trouble keeping weight on. So we shall see what happens in terms of some teams. Obviously, he's only a zone guy, which rules out kind of half the teams in the league. Some teams will have parameters about weight. The Seahawks are very tied into specific height, weight guys. There are other teams the same. So we shall see. But in terms of offensive line, that then puts you in a kind of a Trevor Penning, Bernard Ryman. The kid from Tulsa, I don't particularly like, but Daniel Jeremiah mocked him to us, whether that's an Abraham Lucas, the Washington State right tackle. There's some interesting guards, but you probably wouldn't take a guard in the first round. Maybe Zion Johnson, maybe Kenyon Green, potentially two really good players. You might think about moving Zion Johnson to center. Let's say you sign Armstead and you sign Laken Tomlinson and you have James Daniels at right guard and you kick Robert Hunt out to right tackle and you bring Zion Johnson in to play center, or you play Daniels at center and see if Zion can play right guard. But for me, I just fix the offensive line, and that's where I'd start in free agency. And I don't want to dabble around with mid-tier guys. Let's go out there and get it sorted, because we've ignored it. And the worry for me, and I think probably for you guys as well, but Chris, I don't know what you think, but I know what you think, but we just can't prove that you know what you're talking about when it comes to offensive linemen. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Prove it, because we haven't proved it over the years.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes was Mike McDaniel was I forgot what the exact quote was, but Mike McDaniel was showing them film on what he wanted on the offensive line, which is the greatest news that we've heard all offseason, which means maybe he's picking the guys on the offensive line and things are going to be different. We're going to get into your laundry list that you posted earlier on OnlyFans as far as a Shanahan offense, Chris. But do you perceive the weaknesses, the immediate weaknesses that are going to be attempted to be fixed here in the next few weeks, as the offensive line and basically just the offensive line, or you think there's going to be a running back in there as well? Because I think we all agree. I don't think that they're going after an expensive pass catcher. Do we all agree?
Well, I don't know that we all agree. I mean, that was the point that I brought up a number of weeks ago, but I mean, I still a lot of people are still looking at, I don't know, like Allen Robinson or some of those guys out there, and people still have kind of visions of us trading for Calvin Ridley, and there's still a lot out there. I don't personally have not agreed with that, but yeah, I think that a lot of people, here's what's interesting. Actually, I'll just start by saying this. On defense, I really don't know what they're gonna do. I don't have a good feel for that yet, because honestly, the defense that we saw in the second half of the year, for the most part, was a really good defense, and they're almost all still there. They're working to get Emmanuel Ogbah back, and so it's like, what is the resupply on defense? I'm not entirely sure there. So more homework needed, I guess.
I would say that, immediately on defense, like you kind of want somebody to play alongside Jerome Baker. But
sure.
They've
already been linked to Donta Hightower. But yeah.
$10 million a year for a 32-year-old, like, wow.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's tough. So not a great feel on defense. On offense, I was looking at, and I had a coach share this with me, and it was like a really old, obscure article. And it was, they outlined it perfectly. They said that when Kyle Shanahan was talking to Brian Hoyer, and this was back on the Browns, I guess in 2015, he said, this is what we really need on offense to make this particular offense work. And he labeled them in this order: a dominant X receiver, a possession receiver, a burner, a pass catching tight end, 2 pass catching backs, and a cerebral center, which I found the last one really interesting, because he could have said athletic center. He could have said, talk about a guy who can get out to reach blocks and stuff like that. But he said cerebral. And then you think back at the history of Shanahan and his admiration for Alex Mack, and bringing him to San Francisco, how they targeted Weston Richburg with big money, a lot bigger than a lot of people had been expecting. The history actually does suggest that the emphasis is on intelligence, communication, chemistry, veteran experience, all those things at the center position. So I think that's interesting. But I look at that list and I'm like, well, it's interesting. Jalen Waddle is really interesting because he could be any of the 3. So which of the one of the 3 do you want him to be? Because he can be a burner. He was a possession receiver for the Dolphins. I mean, there is no arguing that, I think, last year. And yet, he can play the X position. And while he's not traditionally sized like a Julio Jones or Andre Johnson, both of whom played in this Shanahan offense, I was talking with another coach about it. He could be a dominant X receiver as well. But he can only be one of those things. And they need 2 others. So, that does open the door for some free agents. I just don't think they're going to be high priced ones. The pass catching tight end, it's like, well, they have a pass catching tight end. I don't know if you've heard of them.
It'll be expensive though. Expensive.
They're going to have to. They might franchise them, but but yeah. So that's there if they want it. Clearly, they're going to have to work on the pass catching backs. I do think it could be a significant investment, because Chris Greer has been. I get the sense that the front office has been chomping at the bit to try and get a pretty good running back over the last number of years, and they feel like they've been overruled perhaps by Brian Flores, who doesn't think that you would invest in those. And so, today when Mike McDaniel gets up there and he says that the running back position is really valuable, because think about how many times he touches the ball, like second most on the offense aside from the quarterback. He's got the second most ability to affect the game on offense, second only to the quarterback position. And he said it just so happens that, there's a history because of this or that, like that of being able to find guys in the later rounds. And I think that's just because it's really hard. It's not because you don't need to invest high picks in a running back. It's not like you can just go shopping in the 4th round and, oh yeah, I found one. It's because it's really hard to evaluate them. And Bill Parcells, I remember him talking about this too. He said that running backs, the best yard gainers, come in all shapes and all sizes. And it's really you just have to look at each one and decide whether he can do it or not. And then the other thing is the most difficult thing to predict in the future about any of these prospects is which guys are going to show durability at the next level. Like, you can't predict it. Like, you just don't know. And so, basically, because of those things, you end up a situation where it gets really hard to sort the position, like who's the best and who's the worst. Like, it gets really hard. And when it's really hard to sort them, that's where you get the phenomenon of like, oh, this 5th round pick ended up being awesome, and this 1st round pick ended up being terrible. So I think that just because of one doesn't mean that it's not a valuable position. And he's emphasizing that it is a valuable position. So I think that Greer in the front office might be, just finally going to go after it, like really invest in somebody. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see a 1st round running back. But otherwise, the offensive line, obviously total revamp. Based on everything I'm seeing, it's going to be a free agent problem, or a lot of free agents there on the offensive line. They seem, the Kyle Shanahan offense, these guys, they seem to really value experience. And it's not just at the center position. It's everywhere. They don't have a great a history, an established history of high draft pick offensive linemen that go and play right away. Not too many of them anyway. And so it makes me think, basically anybody that they have experience with, and we're talking about centers like, we're talking about Ben Jones, who was in Tennessee when Chandler Henley was there, or we're talking about, I mentioned Scott Quessenberry. You guys shit all over that one. But he was there when Frank Smith was there. If there's a trade, let's say the Chicago Bears prioritize James Daniels, and they're like, no, he's a young stud, we don't want to let him get away. Well, maybe now they're open to trading Cody Whitehair, because Cody Whitehair is the reason James Daniels hadn't been playing center in the first place. So, and Frank Smith was there when Cody Whitehair was there. James Daniels, by the way, the connections between that Iowa offense and the system and this offense, this exact offense, are deep, really deep, and I mean, Kyle Shanahan drafted both CJ Beathard, the quarterback, and George Kittle, the tight end, from that same Iowa offense in the same year. And James Daniels was on that offensive line. And the Dolphins hired a Ferentz. They hired Z Ferentz on defense. And I think that those run so deep that, to me, James Daniels is the home run at the center position, because he has, potentially the experience, the NFL experience, the experience in this offense, and then also the lateral mobility and ability to hit reach blocks and stuff like that. But that's the only home run. But the other ones, just pick anybody they have experience with, anybody that has a reputation for being cerebral, and that's who they may go after. And then on the guards positions, Simon is all about Laken Tomlinson, and it's like, well, they value so much knowing what these guys are going to be able to see and do in this offense, that wouldn't really be surprising. Wouldn't be surprising if, like, Michael Schofield or Mark Glowinski, guys that have experience with other members of the coaching staff over the years. Wouldn't be surprised if those types of people, if they steer toward a bunch of guys that they know can really establish the blocking that they like to see.
Yeah, and as you go through that laundry list of a dominant X receiver, a possession receiver, a burner, a pass catching tight end, 2 pass catching backs, cerebral center, you can make a case that they have 3 of those things. But and this question is for you, Simon. I've gone over this offense. Well, I should say I went over the 49er offense in 2021. With a fine, is it a fine tooth comb?
It is a fine tooth comb.
Okay. That's how I went over that offense. All right. And I really...
You know that you went over it with a fine tooth comb if you don't know that it's a fine tooth comb.
That's a great point. But I always come back to, well, he's cheap. His contract's good. I can't find Devontae Parker in there. Like, how does he fit, or does he not, Simon?
I don't know. I think he's 50-50 to make the roster. Just depends what they do. If they pick up a couple of guys in free agency and they draft a couple of guys, I think they want to get younger, cheaper, healthier at the position. And it wouldn't surprise. I wouldn't be surprised if they traded Devontae Parker for a day 3 pick on during the draft kind of thing. This is a yak offense, and it's a guy that doesn't get yak. This is a blocking offense, and this is a guy that isn't overwhelming as a blocker despite his physical traits. This is a next man up, stay healthy kind of offense, tough guy off. I'm not saying that Devontae Parker's not tough. He clearly is. You have to be tough to play in the NFL, but his body is just not made for the rigors of the NFL season. That you look at guys like Deebo Samuel taking snaps and catching balls and returning kicks, and Devontae just doesn't have that bodily makeup in terms of. So there might be a place for him, but what are we keeping? 5/6 receivers. You figure Mac Hollins.
Well, there's going to be a fullback. Okay, there's going to be a fullback, which means goodbye to 6 receivers and hello to 5 receivers. I would say.
I think it's 5 receivers too, and Waddle is obviously one of them. Mac Hollins is likely to be 2 because of his special teams ability. You know, he's a special teams captain, and he was great on special teams last season, and he's reliable. He can block. I think Lynn Bowden is an X factor. You know, and I think it's interesting that Lynn Bowden and Tua are literally working out every single day and pretty much living in each other's pockets. He just fits the offense as well. So if Lynn Bowden does make it, you're essentially looking at 2. But even if he doesn't make it, you're only looking at 3. And, you know, you kind of figure they're going to bring at least 1 guy in free agency, maybe 2. You know, let's just say they bring in a Byron Pringle and a, you know, an another, and that leaves 1 more spot for a receiver in the draft. And you figure they're going to draft at least 1 guy. Mm-hmm. You know, it wouldn't surprise me if they drafted 2 receivers. So, yeah, I think his days might be numbered, because you've also, you know, you've still got other guys on the roster. And, you know, how do they feel about Ford? How do they feel about Wilson? How do you know, you think it's unlikely, but you just never know, you know, what McDaniel might fall in love with.
Yeah. Now, same question, Chris. I've gone over this. What is he the possession receiver? But how? Like, where are they going to play him? They're not going to play him in the slot, are they? In 11 personnel?
No, he's not. He's not a possession receiver. You know, the one that he might have qualified for, and if he was still, you know, if you can argue he's still in his prime, and if you can argue that his body's going to hold up, is potentially a dominant X receiver. But I don't think he's dominant anymore. I think that he has plays where he dominates the cornerback physically, but he's not a rack player. And so, you know, that's the best that he can fit. But honestly, like I was saying, I can't help but wonder if they have in mind Jalen Waddle to play the position that you've seen, you know, super high throughput position on the receiving unit that you've seen at different stops along the way, whether it be Andre Johnson, Julio Jones, Pierre Garçon, Deebo Samuel. This is, I mean, hell, McDaniel's screamed Waddle's name into that Levitard podcast. I mean, that's what he was saying. So I can't help but think, well, okay, so then now that what they're going to want is a burner, which they don't have a burner other than Jalen, right?
Will Fuller.
Jalen Waddle. Yeah. I'm not even going to touch that one. I'm sorry. And so they need a burner that's not Jalen Waddle, and they need a possession receiver, like a true, you know, and Wes Welker was a possession receiver. So I think that those two, if you want to look at the free agents through that lens, then think about those. But Devontae Parker, I mean, the simple thing is, I just go back to it, and I was bringing it up before. If they do keep Mike Gesicki, and if they're willing to use the franchise tag on him, then everybody can say, "Oh, it's going to be a tag and trade or something like." You can say that, but the chances are that the trade doesn't happen.
Draft analyst Daniel Jeremiah on Pickett.
What does Daniel Jeremiah think, Simon?
And we welcome guest Daniel Jeremiah of the NFL Network onto the podcast.
When you accidentally click something on the Twitter that you weren't supposed to.
Oh, it could have been much. It could have been much worse then. But anyway, so I think that if they keep Mike Gesicki, and if they're willing to franchise tag him, then they're absolutely willing to keep him. Then how does both Mike Gesicki and Devontae Parker fit in a rack offense? They don't. Like, it's one or the other. And I think Parker is very marketable because he's only going to be making $6 million cash this year.
That's what I always fall back to. But is that really an argument for keeping a player? Oh, his contract's good.
It's an argument. It's an argument for his marketability. You know, because
somebody's going to want him.
There's still plenty of tape of him dominating corners even this year. You know, and when the Dolphins decide, okay, we're going to get Devontae the ball this half, like, he does well. You know, and so there's tape of that, and there's stuff to fall in love with. The number is clearly something that a team could fall in love with, especially if they're hard up against the cap and they need somebody with these capabilities. So he's the most it goes beyond like, oh, we'll keep him just because he's cheap. It goes to the point of, well, he should be marketable. and that means that they could pick up an asset for him. And I think that could be the way that they go.
I just want to make 2 quick points on Parker, actually, before we wrap up with Devontae. Did you know that the average yard of separation for wide receivers in the NFL is 2.91 yards, according to Next Gen Stats? Jalen Waddle's is 3.3. Devontae Parker's is 1.7. I mean, that is significantly below.
He's basically running on top of people.
Yeah, I mean, again, that is not, but you look at that is not a separation number that is then predicated on making yards after the catch. You just, you've got guys draped all over you. The second point is slightly more tenuous, but Parker missed 6 games in 2021. His new receivers coach missed 8 games in 10 years. I mean, Wes Welker is not going to be a guy that is particularly happy with Parker missing, half a season every year, which he's look, he's not getting any younger either. So that body is not going to get any better. It's not like Devontae Parker's going to turn around next year and play 16 games and then play 17 games and then 17 the year after. We're looking at that just doesn't happen. We're looking at it going in the opposite direction, and it's already bad anyway. So, I think a decision will need to be made.
Yeah, and Wes Welker is one of these guys that really, really cares about conditioning. So, yeah, that's going to be evident right away, early on, I would say. But yeah, I guess we'll figure this out as it's going forward. But as of right now, it doesn't look good. And I keep coming right back to, but his contract's good, So I guess we can move on with our pass catches with this. What do you think happens with Mike Gesicki, Simon?
Hard to say. I don't think you can call it either way. I think if he stays, I wouldn't be shocked. If he goes, I wouldn't be shocked. I don't think they'll franchise him. I think they'll try and work out a deal. Just depends how much his agent feels like he wants to be paid like a receiver, and how much Chris Greer is prepared to say, dude, shut the fuck up, he's a tight end. So I just don't think you can call it really, and I suspect it will all come down to realistically what Mike McDaniel feels about it, because he will have watched every single snap now of the past 100 years, because he's such a nerd who gets to the office at 3 a.m. having had 1 hour sleep, and 6,000 peanut M&Ms, so no vegetables. So I genuinely don't think you can call it. It's a really tough one.
By the way, this is kind of breaking news in the middle of our show, or toward the end of our show, but Dallas is rumored to be franchising Dalton Schultz. So
that's got to be predictable, right? I mean, he's too valuable to just let escape. Some of these guys that we talk about, I mean, most of the guys that you talk about this early and before free agency, like you're like,
they never make it.
There's a reason you want them. There's a reason you want
they're good.
Them, okay?
Yes.
They're good, and
we're hoping that their teams don't know that they're good, which is likely not going to happen.
Not going to happen because they have the most exposure to them, and so it's like, the team kept him, and now you're disappointed. It's like, well, you couldn't have, for as much as we talk about like a James Daniels or something like that. It's like, why wouldn't Chicago keep him? What's the deal there? So I think that they're most not surprising.
Yeah, it's like we always talk about, and before this podcast, Simon was watching Liverpool win their match, and around here, it's been Winterville as of late. Nothing that the Dolphins have done, by the way, but the Florida Panthers are the number 1 seed in the entire NHL, and the Heat are the 1 seed. And what does Pat Riley always say, Chris? Look for the disgruntled guy, right? Like that's who you want. Who's out there? Maybe James Daniels says, you know what? Screw these people. I've been asking these people for $8 million, $9 million a year, and they're holding the line against me. Screw them. I'm going elsewhere. Something like that is what's going to have to shake.
Well, you hope. You hope maybe there's like hard feelings about, or not truly hard feelings, but frustration that he hasn't really gotten a play center. I mean, that was where he was a star at Iowa, right? And and he's been a guard. Maybe he likes guard more, I don't know, but you're hoping for that. There's obviously offensive system similarities that would make him say, this is the system where I could really make hay. So you're hoping, but you don't really know. It doesn't surprise me that Schultz, I mean, this is the guy that I don't think any of us can make the case, no matter how much we like Mike Gesicki, that's the guy that we all have to agree would have probably been an upgrade over Gesicki in this offense. In particular.
Yeah, you could play him in different places, and you could play him play side. You could play him weak side. You could do everything with him.
He's also a run after catch tight end. I mean, he is a strong run after catch tight end, and Gesicki that's sort of a little bit of a weakness of his, and so I think in addition to that he does block. I wouldn't say he's a superb blocker, but he blocks, and
he's average, and average is good enough when you're as good a pass catcher.
Right, exactly. And Gesicki, we know has his weaknesses there. So that probably would have been an upgrade, but it's like, yeah, Dallas knows that too. So
I've got something else for you, Pack fans. Okay. Teron Armstead, who I absolutely, as the hours go by, believe that the Dolphins should sign. Who ran a faster 40 time at the combine, Teron Armstead or Jerry Rice?
Oh,
wow.
Jerry, okay, but I know that Teron Armstead ran in the 4.7s, and I think it was the low 4.7s. I want to say like a 4.71 or something like that. Even it was really good fucking time.
He ran the fastest time by an offensive lineman since in the 2000s at 4.71. Who ran the fastest time, Jerry Rice or Teron Armstead?
I would say Armstead. I think Jerry Rice was over 4.7.
I think he was like 4.72 or something like that.
They were both 4.71.
Okay.
Remarkable.
That is remarkable.
Greatest receiver in history and a 300-pound offensive lineman.
Can we ignore the fact that, for everything that we just said about Devontae Parker and his health issues and not being able to stay in it, can we really ignore that about Teron Armstead, that he plays basically an average of 10 games a year?
Well, Trent Williams is the comparable, right? San Francisco went out and got him.
If it works out, yeah, that's the comparable.
But come on, let's face it. Trent Williams came back from cancer. Okay. So, I don't know if Trent Williams came back from cancer. I don't think it's asking too much for Teron Armstead to get over his nagging injuries, right, and play complete seasons and be one of the better left tackles in football, like Trent Williams was this past year.
Can't you say that about Devontae Parker or somebody? Like,
that's true.
If Trent Williams could come back from cancer, then Devontae, insert player name here.
Yeah.
I don't know. You can't really ignore that. And it makes
but the parallels are there, right? Like you could see it, right?
Well, in that they're both good players. But just because one ended up having a fully healthy season doesn't mean that the other is going to do. I mean, you could have said that about like Will Fuller, he was, and then he played like how many snaps? It was ridiculous. So
Will Fuller caught 3 passes, man.
I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? And that's you could say, well, look at this guy, and then I could say, well, yeah, but also look at Will Fuller. It's we can't ignore that. And maybe it's just as simple as, we've all sort of agreed at various points that we think they might not be done with Austin Jackson because of his athleticism and maybe fits the offense a little bit better than some other guys. Maybe it's as simple as, well, Austin Jackson gets to be the swing backup or something. And if Teron Armstead misses some time, then they have to roll on with Austin Jackson.
And that brings us right to where we're going to close this show. Obviously, we're going to talk a lot about the offensive line because I not only believe, but I've been told that they will get at least 2 starters on the offensive line in free agency, if not 3. Okay. That was reported on OnlyFans 2 weeks ago. Simon, what's salvageable of what's left on this offensive line? Where do you see them playing, if anywhere?
What do you mean? What's salvageable? As in the players that are?
Yeah, like what you're keeping. What's worth keeping or looking forward to in 2022.
Well, Rob Hunt, although he's not really pulling up any trees for me, but I think he at least deserves to be in the mix. Eichenberg, it's too soon to give up on a 2nd-round pick, but Jesus Christ, he's got to get better. And I understand the Jackson situation in terms of, we reported on OnlyFans he needs to improve his core. That's something the Dolphins are really keen on doing. But you'd like to see him with a proper offensive line coach. it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And I'm not shocked there, given his age as well. He's just a baby. Is he even 22 yet? 23 yet? He's still really, really. There's kids entering the draft now who are older than him, and he's about to start his third season. So I think those guys. I just look, if they turn around and it's like, we sign a load of mid-tier guys and Dieter starts again. It's just like, that's not fixing the line. That's not, So I think having Michael Dieter as a backup, I think having Eichenberg in the mix, Jackson as a backup, if somebody's better than Rob Hunt, then he's a backup. And that's so, people keep saying, why are you going to sign James Daniels? What happens to Rob Hunt? It's like, guys, we're not talking about Marshall Yander here. We're talking about Robert Hunt.
Exactly.
Come on, let's get real.
And we're not paying Rob Hunt $15 million a year or anything like that.
No. He had some nice moments, but fucking hell, he had some bad ones as well. So, let's keep it real.
Yeah, and I guess before I move on to Chris, where do you see Robert Hunt fitting as a right guard, right tackle? In my opinion, I think it's right guard and nowhere else.
I think it's probably right guard.
Simon?
Yeah, probably right guard. But if there's somebody better, then so be it.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Let's throw a scenario out there. Okay, so let's say that you do go all in, trying to pull James Daniels, and I think all of us like the idea.
Mm-hmm.
He's good. He's a good right guard for the Chicago Bears, right? And that's what he's been playing. So you've got James Daniels, free agency is done, probably have some other guys and stuff. And now you're fast forward, we're hitting the draft. Tyler Linderbaum does make it to your pick at 29.
Holy shit.
Well, then what do? Well, you can take Tyler Linderbaum to nail down the center position, and you still got James Daniels to nail down right guard. And where does that leave Rob Hunt? It either leaves him not playing, like Simon says, if somebody's better than you just don't play, or moving out to right tackle. So I think that it's probably not going to be known exactly where until everything shakes out. What I can say is that here are some names that I don't think fit. I don't think Jesse Davis fits. I don't think Solomon Kindley fits. I don't think Robert Jones fits. Even though some people like him and he played in the final game of the year, I really reviewed it in that final game, and I just. Honestly, he wasn't even as good in pass protection as Jesse Davis, and we know what kind of challenges Jesse Davis has there. I don't think he fits. It's possible looking at Michael Dieter, he could fit. It's possible looking at Liam Eichenberg, he could fit. You can make the case for Robert Hunt as well, playing in this system. Austin Jackson, you could make the case for him playing in the system. And then after that, it's like, well, Larnell Coleman, Adam Pankey. No, probably not. So
Larnell Coleman, there's a name I haven't heard.
Yeah. So there's a lot to be done here. There's only a couple of guys that you could argue fit, and not even all of them are bound to be even competing for starting positions. And so we'll see. We'll see how that goes, but I think that offensive line is going to be like a 9-man position or something like that.
Yeah, especially in this system.
Yeah, and so of that, maybe they keep Dieter and Hunt around, and Austin Jackson as well. And I don't know, am I missing anybody else? I don't think you want anything else. Eichenberg. Yeah, well, and Eichenberg, So it's like 5 new people, right?
Yeah.
You said at the start that we do really long podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
This feels like we've been going since about Monday, and it's still going on. Even I've tuned out. I'm reading The Athletic.
Oh, so you have a subscription to The Athletic?
I've had a subscription for ages. It's really good.
Oh.
You know what else you can get a subscription for? Have you heard of OnlyFans?
I haven't. Tell me more.
It's this great service that you get where you get to sign up, and I'm not going to go through it.
Yeah, well, you're going to want to be on there, okay? It's well worth the $3 a month, because we're going to be talking a lot of free agency. We're going to be talking a lot of combine. which next week, obviously, we're going to recap the combine. If you're on OnlyFans, maybe I'm recapping and we're recapping the combine as it happens. And we're watching the workouts.
These are the times when our subscribers swell, right? Like we fire the coach, and that almost doubled our OnlyFans subscriptions because they fired the coach, and now everybody wants to know who's going to be the next coach, or wants to hear what we're hearing and everything like that. And then you got free agency. Everybody wants to know who we might be looking at in free agency. Everybody, and then you got the draft, and it's like everybody wants to know who we might draft. And we're not saying that we will definitively tell you all these things. That's not the case, but you will hear intelligent discussion as well as rumors and things that we hear, and a lot of really good perspective. Taking the things that everybody is seeing and actually putting them into proper perspective. I think that's a strength of Simon's and yourself and myself in our OnlyFans chats.
Absolutely. And of course, all of that for $3 a month. It's
How
less
much?
$3 a month. It's half.
Surely you mean $300 a month?
No.
What
Well,
about
that actually would be ridiculous, Simon, if we were charging $300 a month to hear us.
What about $30 a month? Surely that's a fair price.
That's
For $300 a month, we'll turn our OnlyFans into an OnlyFans.
You speak for yourself, cock boy.
All right. Next week, when you hear from us, we will recap the combine, and we will look forward to free agency, because we will be exactly about 10 days away.
Haven't we just done that?
No, we just looked at all our weaknesses, which we're concentrated on one side of the ball. Although I'm at a loss of who the hell's going to play next to Jerome Baker. Okay, I'm guessing it's a draft pick that will play next to Jerome Baker this coming year. But all right, that's it. There is no more. Talk to you guys next week.
Thanks for listening to 3 Yards Per Carry. You can subscribe via iTunes, on Podbean, or your usual podcast provider.